It was a cold, windy morning, somewhere in a small village in Enugu State, Nigeria. A 20-year-old girl named Adaeze stood quietly by the wooden doorway of her uncle's house. Her neatly styled Afro hair framed her smooth, brown skin, yet her eyes told a story of pain and loss. She had lost both parents when she was just 9 years old, and since then, her life had been nothing but a slow crawl through hardship. Her uncle, a stern man with a voice like dry gravel, had taken her in, but over the years, the kindness faded. Food became scarce, insults became plenty, and Adaeze began to feel like a stranger in her own family. That morning, she overheard voices from the kitchen. Her uncle and aunt were whispering, but not softly enough. "She's grown now," her aunt hissed. "We can't keep feeding her forever." "She'll marry Chike," her uncle replied coldly. Adaeze's heart skipped. Chike. The poor carpenter's son. The one who lived in a mud house at the edge of the village. She froze, wondering how her life could sink even lower. But what she didn't know was that this decision would change her life forever. 2 weeks later, the wedding happened. No fanfare. No laughter. No music. Just a rushed ceremony under the village almond tree, attended by a few curious neighbors. Adaeze wore a borrowed yellow gown, its hem slightly torn, but her beauty still shone. Her neatly kept afro swayed gently in the breeze, her face emotionless. Chike stood beside her in a faded white shirt and worn-out jeans. His hands were rough, his smile shy. To Adaeze, this was humiliation. She had dreamed of marrying for love, of finding someone who saw her worth. But now, she was being given away like unwanted property. Her uncle didn't hide his relief. "Now you are his responsibility," he said coldly after the ceremony, handing her a small bag of clothes. The walk to Chike's home was long and quiet. His house, just 2 rooms with a zinc roof, looked as poor as she expected. A broken bench stood at the entrance, and the compound was empty. Inside, Chike spoke softly. "I know you didn't want this, but I promise, I'll never treat you badly." Adaeze gave a small nod, but inside, she was already planning how to endure this life. What she didn't see was the glint in Chike's eyes, a glint only a man with a hidden life could have. That first night in Chike's house felt different. The room was small, the zinc roof above letting in the soft rhythm of rain, yet Adaeze couldn't sleep. She lay still on the thin mattress, staring at the shadows that danced along the mud walls. Chike had insisted she take the bed, while he lay on a mat beside the door. Around midnight, she heard a faint rustling. Slowly, she turned her head. Through the dim light of the kerosene lamp, she saw Chike rise quietly. His movements were deliberate, almost rehearsed. He opened a wooden box from under the bed and pulled out dark, stylish jeans, a fitted black shirt, and polished shoes, far too fine for a man the whole village believed to be poor. From the same box, he removed something small, metallic, and wrapped it carefully in a cloth. Adaeze's heartbeat quickened. Without a word, Chike slipped out of the house, locking the door gently behind him. She thought about following him, but fear kept her rooted. Where could he be going at this hour? And why dressed like a man from the city? Quickly, she placed the phone back exactly as it was. When Chike returned, he didn't mention the message, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a flicker that made her wonder if he knew she had seen it. She decided to stay silent. Not because she wasn't curious, but because something told her this was just the beginning. Lying there in the dark, Adaeze felt it deep in her bones. This marriage held secrets she was not ready for. The morning after was quiet. Chike returned at dawn, his clothes slightly damp, his face calm, too calm. He made breakfast like nothing had happened. Adaeze said nothing, but her mind replayed every movement she had seen. Later that afternoon, as Chike bathed outside, his phone began to ring on the table. She almost ignored it, until she noticed the name on the screen, Sati. Something about it felt out of place. The phone stopped ringing, but almost instantly, a text came through. She glanced at it, and her eyes widened. The funds are ready. Shall we proceed with the Lagos property? Adaeze's hands trembled. Lagos. Funds. Property. Those weren't words a poor carpenter's son should be discussing. 2 days later, Adaeze went to the village market to buy vegetables. As she passed the yam store, she overheard 2 women gossiping in low voices, but just loud enough for her to catch every word. I saw Chike in Enugu last week, one whispered. Enugu. What was he doing there? The other asked. That's the thing, he stepped out of a shiny black car, wearing clothes finer than anything we've seen here. And get this, he had men opening the door for him. Adaeze stopped in her tracks, pretending to examine tomatoes while listening closely. A shiny black car. Men opening the door for him. None of this matched the Chike she knew, the man who fixed broken stools and fetched water like any other villager. On her way home, she studied him carefully. He was outside, hammering nails into a wooden bench. But behind that calm face, she was certain there was more. Much more. In that moment, Adaeze realized something important. She had been wrong about this marriage. It might not be her prison, it might be her path into a life she never dreamed possible. The rain fell steadily that evening, drumming against the zinc roof. Chike left for what he called the quick errand. Adaeze, left alone, began cleaning the house. That's when she noticed, again, the small back room that was always locked. She had never been inside. Never even seen him open it. The padlock was newer than anything else in the house. Her curiosity burned. She tried the handle, locked. But then she remembered the bent nail she had seen near the window frame. With trembling hands, she slid it into the padlock. The click of the lock made her heart jump. She pushed the door open and froze. Inside was no poor man's room. There was a large wardrobe filled with tailored suits, Italian leather shoes, designer wristwatches that gleamed under the light, and on the table sat a silver briefcase with a gold latch. Before she could open it, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Panic surged through her. She quickly shut the door, locked it again, and threw the nail back where she found it. When Chike walked in moments later, dripping from the rain, he looked at her with an unreadable expression, as if he knew something had shifted. The following morning, Adaeze woke to the murmur of voices outside the window. Peering through a gap in the curtain, she saw 2 men standing at the gate. They were dressed in expensive suits, their shoes shone like mirrors. One handed Chike a thick brown envelope, the other, a set of car keys. Chike took them calmly, glanced around the compound, and slipped both into the locked room without a word. When he came inside, he spoke casually, too casually. I'm traveling to the city tomorrow. I'll be gone for 3 days. If you need anything, here. He placed 5 crisp 1,000 Nigerian Nairas notes on the table. Adaeze's eyes flicked to his face, searching for clues. The man she had been forced to marry was no ordinary villager. She was certain now, he lived 2 lives. One here, humble and quiet, and another far away, powerful and hidden. That night, Adaeze lay awake, her heart restless. She didn't know what awaited her, but she knew the truth was drawing closer. And when it came, her life would never be the same again. The next morning, Chike left early, just after sunrise. His steps were quick, his eyes focused on something beyond the dusty village road. He didn't carry tools, or wood, or any sign of his carpentry work. Hours turned into a full day, then 2. No message. No word. No neighbor had seen him. Adaeze tried to keep busy, cooking, sweeping, washing, but Adaeze nodded at her. On the third day, she sat on the bench outside, waiting. As the sun dipped low, a black SUV rolled quietly into the village. The tinted windows reflected the golden sunset, and Adaeze's breath caught when the door opened. Chike stepped out. His shirt was neatly pressed, his shoes spotless. And yet, without missing a beat, he picked up a hammer from the bench and pretended to be fixing something before walking inside. Adaeze said nothing, but her eyes followed him. Where had he been? Who had driven him in such a car? And why hide it? She knew she was getting closer to the edge of the truth, but she also knew, whatever Chike was hiding, it wasn't small. The following week, Adaeze was fetching water when she saw a motorbike approaching. The rider was dressed sharply, too sharply for the village. He stopped at their gate and handed her a small package wrapped in plain brown paper. "It's for Chike," he said with a polite smile, before speeding off. Adaeze turned the package over in her hands. It was surprisingly heavy. She thought about opening it, but something told her not to risk it. She placed it on the table and waited. When Chike returned, his eyes immediately locked on the package. He picked it up without a word, walked straight to the locked room, and disappeared inside. 10 minutes later, he came out, his hands empty. That night, Adaeze heard the faint sound of counting, crisp notes being stacked. The rhythm was unmistakable. Her curiosity had now grown into something else, a need. She needed to know exactly who her husband was, and what world he truly belonged to. It was after dinner, the oil lamp flickering gently. Adaeze sat quietly, watching Chike eat. She decided it was time to ask. "Where do you go when you leave at night?" she asked softly. Chike's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. Slowly, he set it down, and looked at her. His gaze was steady, unreadable. "Some questions," he said, "are better left alone." His tone wasn't harsh, but it carried a weight that made Adaeze's skin prickle. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply returned to his food, and the silence stretched between them like an invisible wall. That night, Adaeze couldn't sleep. She realized Chike was a man who guarded his secrets fiercely. But that only made her want to uncover them more. She promised herself, the next time an opportunity came, she wouldn't hesitate. It happened again. Chike leaving at midnight. This time, Adaeze pretended to be asleep until she heard the door click shut. She waited a few minutes, then crept to the window. Through the moonlight, she saw him walk quickly toward the edge of the village, where a black car was waiting. 2 men stepped out and greeted him respectfully before opening the back door for him. Her pulse quickened. Who were these men? Why did they treat him like someone important? When Chike returned hours later, he looked tired but satisfied. He went straight to the locked room, stayed there for a long while, then came to bed without saying a word. Adaeze lay still, but her mind was racing. She was now certain, Chike's poor man life was nothing more than a mask. The next day, while they were having breakfast, Chike's phone rang. He answered quickly, stepping outside, but not far enough for her not to hear. "Yes, tell them to finalize the Abuja deal. I'll sign the documents when I get back," he said. Adaeze's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. Abuja deal. Documents. When he came back inside, she acted as if she had heard nothing. But inside, her chest was thundering. This was no carpenter's talk. She now knew with absolute certainty, her husband was hiding a life worth millions. And soon, very soon, she would find out why. It was a hot afternoon, the kind where the air feels heavy and the village seems to move in slow motion. Adaeze was sweeping the front yard when she spotted a man approaching. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen in the village. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a crisp blue suit that looked as though it had never seen a wrinkle in its life. His shoes gleamed under the sun, and a gold watch caught the light as he walked. He didn't even greet her, his eyes scanned the compound with purpose. "Is Chike home?" he asked, his deep voice carrying an authority that made her stand straighter. Before she could answer, Chike appeared in the doorway. But this time, his face lit up in a way Adaeze had never seen before. "My brother," Chike exclaimed, shaking the man's hand firmly. The two went inside, speaking in low voices. Adaeze pretended to wash dishes, but she strained her ears. She caught only fragments. "Transfer completed. Lagos branch. Security clearance." When the man left, Chike avoided her gaze completely. That night, Adaeze could hardly sleep. She knew the pieces of the puzzle were finally fitting together, and they pointed to a truth far bigger than she imagined. The following day, Chike left for the market. Adaeze's eyes drifted once again to the locked room. But this time, she noticed something. The padlock was gone. Her heart raced as she pushed the door open. Sunlight streamed in through the small window, landing on rows of designer clothes, shelves stacked with luxury shoes, and a sleek black leather chair beside a polished desk. But it was the desk that stole her breath, covered in neatly arranged files, documents stamped with bold company logos, and bundles of crisp naira notes tied in thick stacks. On the wall hung a large framed photograph, Chike, wearing a suit, standing beside a group of powerful-looking men in front of a massive glass building. She didn't have long. The sound of footsteps outside sent her into a frenzy. She closed the door just as Chike entered, holding a bag of yams. His eyes scanned the room, then met hers. "You didn't go inside, did you?" he asked quietly. Adaeze swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "No, why?" But in that moment, she knew he could see right through her. That night, Chike sat outside under the moonlight, smoking silently. Adaeze joined him, her eyes searching his face. "Chike, who are you really?" she asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took another slow drag, exhaled, and stared into the distance. "Do you really want to know?" Adaeze's pulse quickened. "Yes. I want to know everything." Chike leaned back, his gaze unreadable. "The truth can change everything between us." She nodded. "Then let it change everything." For a long moment, he simply watched her, as though weighing her soul. Then he stood. "Not tonight, but soon. When I tell you, there will be no turning back." Adaeze's heart ached with both frustration and anticipation. She knew she was closer than ever, but the way he said it made her wonder, what kind of truth could be so powerful, it might change their entire marriage. 2 days later, Chike returned from one of his mysterious trips, but this time, he didn't hide. He arrived in broad daylight, in the back seat of a sleek black Range Rover. The entire village stopped to stare. Children pointed. Women whispered. Men looked on in disbelief. Chike stepped out in a tailored navy suit, a gold watch glinting on his wrist. Behind him, 2 men in dark sunglasses carried briefcases into the house. Adaeze stood frozen at the doorway, her heart pounding. Chike walked up to her, his voice calm, but his eyes intense. "Adaeze, it's time you knew the truth." The men closed the door behind them. Chike removed his jacket, loosened his tie, and looked her in the eye. "I am not the man they told you I was. I'm not a poor carpenter's son. I own companies in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. I live here because I was hiding from something." Adaeze's breath caught. The words echoed in her mind, but she knew there was still more. Much more. Adaeze sat silently, her fingers gripping the edge of her chair. Chike's eyes softened, but his voice was steady. "Years ago," he began, "I was one of the youngest billionaires in Nigeria. I built real estate empires, luxury hotels, and import businesses. But with great wealth came enemies, powerful ones." He leaned forward, his voice low. "A rival tried to destroy me. False accusations, corrupt officials, men who wanted me gone. I had to disappear, vanish from every headline, every photograph. So I sold my penthouse in Lagos, closed my offices in Abuja, and came here to live like a ghost. Adaeze's heart pounded. She thought about all the times she had judged him, the nights she had wondered why he hid. "But why marry me?" she asked softly. Chike's gaze didn't waver. "Because I saw your strength, even in pain. I knew you were different. And I needed someone by my side who wasn't after my money, someone who could love me for who I am." Her throat tightened. She didn't know whether to cry or to believe. But deep down, something told her he was telling the truth. Chike reached into the silver briefcase the men had brought in earlier. Inside were neatly stacked bundles of cash, documents, and a small velvet box. He placed the cash on the table. "This," he said, "is yours. Enough to change your life, enough to make sure you never have to beg from anyone again." Then he opened the velvet box, revealing a diamond ring that sparkled like it had stolen the light from the sun. "I want to start over," he said quietly. "Not as the poor man you were forced to marry, but as the man I truly am. And I want you to be part of my real life, the one I left behind." Adaeze's eyes blurred with tears. She thought of her uncle's harsh words, the humiliation of being forced into this marriage, and the lonely nights she had endured. But now, here was the truth, shining before her in diamonds and promises. And yet, a part of her still feared the danger his wealth might bring back into their lives. That night, Adaeze couldn't sleep. She lay beside Chike, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the life he offered, and the dangers that might follow. In her heart, she knew she could walk away. She could take the money, leave the village, start fresh. But she also knew she would be leaving behind the man who had shown her quiet respect, even when she had been forced upon him. By sunrise, her decision was made. She stepped outside, where Chike was already awake, sipping tea. "I'll stay," she said softly. His eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I married you when I thought you were poor. I'll stand by you now that I know you're rich. But I don't want the world to change us, not the way the world changes people." A slow smile spread across Chike's face. He took her hand, and in that moment, Adaeze felt something she hadn't felt in years: safety. Weeks passed, and the village slowly learned the truth. At first, whispers spread like wildfire, some in awe, others in jealousy. Chike didn't flaunt his wealth, but things quietly changed. The broken bench was replaced with a carved mahogany seat. The zinc roof was repaired with shining tiles. Children in the village began attending school because of his quiet donations. And Adaeze. She walked with her head high now, not because of the money, but because she finally understood her worth. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Chike stood beside her, watching the horizon. "Our life is about to change, Adaeze, but no matter what comes, remember. I chose you not because I needed a wife, but because I needed you." Her heart swelled. She had been forced into this marriage, but fate had turned it into the greatest gift of her life. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story like this. Your next favorite tale could be just one click away.